Red Bull doesn't just chew through drivers, it swallows them whole and spits out the remains before breakfast. And if you want a perfect example of that ruthless reputation, look no further than Liam Lawson's brutal rise and fall in 2025. The guy went from Red Bull's future to get him out in just 2 races. 2 freaking races. No warm-up, no grace period, no real shot. Just tossed into the fire with a cursed setup and told to survive, and surprise, he didn't. But before we unpack how Lawson got completely screwed over, let's rewind a little. The 2025 season had already started weird. Max Verstappen was still doing Max Verstappen things, somehow dragging a clearly downgraded Red Bull to results it didn't deserve, but everything behind him was chaos. Yuki Tsunoda, who had been handed the second Red Bull seat midway into the season, wasn't exactly lighting up the scoreboard either. And yet he still got more of a leash than Lawson ever did. See, Lawson had only done 11 races over 2 years with the Racing Bulls before Red Bull made the wild call to promote him. And even then, people were confused. His stats weren't jaw-dropping. Tsunoda, with way more experience under his belt, had outperformed him. But Red Bull rolled the dice anyway. Maybe they were desperate. Maybe they thought they'd uncovered a hidden gem. Whatever the reason, they gave him the nod and then gave him nothing else. No test days, no long simulator runs, no practice sessions on the tracks he was supposed to debut at. Lawson got 2 weekends, 2 brand new circuits he'd never raced on, and a car that was already struggling to stay competitive. First race? Australia. Wet conditions, tough circuit, sprint weekend, and boom, he crashes out. Second race? China. He qualifies dead last. Doesn't score. And before the engines even cooled off, he was already out of the car and back in the Racing Bulls garage. But here's the part that'll piss you off. Lawson wasn't just thrown in the deep end. Red Bull basically tied his hands and said, swim. In China, they gave him a setup change that even he admitted was a shot in the dark. It was pitched to him as a long-term learning setup, something experimental to get more data on the car's weird handling. Lawson agreed, thinking this was part of a bigger plan. Instead, Red Bull used that exact race with that sketchy setup as the nail in his coffin. They told him the performance wasn't good enough, and just like that, he was done. Now let's get one thing straight. Lawson isn't acting like he was perfect. He straight up said his own standards weren't met, that he struggled, that he was trying to learn fast. But the way Red Bull handled it, it broke whatever confidence he might have had left. Imagine getting dropped not just for poor performance, but for poor performance caused by an experimental setup you didn't even choose. What makes this sting even more is when you look at how other teams treat their rookies. Take Mercedes, for example. Their young gun, Andrea Kimi Antonelli, didn't exactly cruise through his debut season either, but the difference in how he was supported? Night and day. While Lawson got a corporate shrug and a goodbye wave, Antonelli got a full-blown safety net, testing programs, and public backing from Mercedes leadership. That contrast says everything about the two teams' philosophies. Lawson's story isn't just about getting dumped after 2 races, it's about a culture that sets young drivers up to fail and then blames them for crashing. Red Bull played a dangerous game with a promising talent, and instead of nurturing him, they tossed him into the blender. And now they're acting like he was never the guy. The craziest part, Lawson actually bounced back, not in some miraculous Hollywood-style redemption arc, but in the most real, gritty way possible. The moment he returned to the Racing Bulls, people expected him to be mentally wrecked. 2 humiliating races, public dismissal, and the weight of being branded a failure by the biggest team in the paddock? That kind of thing destroys careers. But instead of sulking, Lawson recalibrated. Slowly, quietly. Then he started scoring points. Out of nowhere, the guy started putting in serious performances. Points in 3 of the last 4 races and 7 top finishes overall. That's 20 points total this season. Now, here's where it gets spicy. Yuki Tsunoda, the same driver Red Bull traded Lawson for, has only managed 10 points in the actual Red Bull car. The faster, better supported machine. Let that sink in. Lawson doubled his points tally in a weaker car while Tsunoda floundered in what's supposed to be one of the top 2 seats in Formula One. And if that's not enough, Lawson has also been outperforming his current Racing Bulls teammate Ishak Hadjar in the exact same car. Over the last 7 races, Liam's consistency has been It's not just about raw pace, it's about growth, composure, and resilience. The dude learned from the worst professional gut punch of his life and flipped it into motivation. He's not screaming for attention, he's just letting the scoreboard speak for him. And if you're paying attention, it's screaming loud. All of this shines a massive spotlight back on Red Bull. If Lawson really was that underprepared, that doomed from the beginning, why even promote him? What was the plan? Because from the outside, it feels like there wasn't one. It feels like they wanted a scapegoat, someone to test the waters, maybe spark something, and if it didn't work, toss him aside, rinse and repeat. Now let's talk about Mercedes, because they're out here running a masterclass in how to handle young talent. Andrea Kimi Antonelli, their golden boy, didn't have a dream run either. He started strong, 5 points finishes in 6 races. The media went wild, next prodigy, mini Schumacher, all the usual hype lines. But then the car hit development problems. Mid-season upgrades messed with the balance, and suddenly Antonelli looked lost. Over the next 7 races, he failed to score in 6 of them. Rookie panic mode? Could have been. But here's the twist. Mercedes didn't flinch. They didn't bench him. They didn't whisper to the press that he was underperforming. They owned the problem. They said the car had lost balance. They acknowledged both drivers were struggling, and instead of breaking Antonelli's spirit, they backed him, privately and publicly. That kind of belief is rare in F1, and it showed. In Canada, Antonelli delivered his first podium, then came a pole in the Miami Sprint, and a gutsy P4 in Australia under mixed conditions. Antonelli had something Lawson never got: time and support. Mercedes didn't throw him in the deep end with no prep. They let him train, test, learn. He spent a whole year driving older Mercedes machinery, logging miles, understanding the team's systems. Red Bull? Lawson got 2 chaotic weekends, one of them with a malfunctioning car, the other with a let's just try something random setup. No wonder he flopped. Most drivers would have done worse. This isn't just about fairness, it's about smart investment. Mercedes see the long game, Red Bull wants instant results, and in a sport where confidence is everything, that difference in approach could define careers. One team's giving their driver every chance to succeed, the other treating talent like it's disposable. There's a deeper issue here that goes beyond just Lawson and Antonelli. It's about the culture of Formula One teams and how they treat young drivers who haven't even hit their peak. Red Bull has built a reputation over the years for being cutthroat with talent. You either deliver on day one or you're out. It's the same system that dumped guys like Pierre Gasly and Alex Albon when they didn't immediately match Verstappen's level, and now Lawson's just the latest name added to that list. It's easy to say that's just how Red Bull operates, but let's be real, it's not sustainable. At some point, you stop building talent and start burning it. Even the most skilled rookie in the world can't perform if they're constantly looking over their shoulder, wondering if every lap could be their last. Confidence is everything in motorsport, and Red Bull's model? It kills confidence before it even has a chance to grow. Lawson's story exposes that flaw in a brutal way. Red Bull didn't just give him a short leash, they wrapped it around his neck. He wasn't given a car that worked, he wasn't given time to adapt, and when he inevitably struggled, they made it look like it was all on him. The crazy part is, even after all that, he still clawed his way back into relevance. That should scare Red Bull more than anything, because it proves that their system isn't just cruel, it's blind to real potential. Now flip it back to Antonelli, and the difference in energy is undeniable. The guy hit a rough patch, but instead of turning their backs, Mercedes got even closer to him. They checked in, they adjusted. They made sure the blame didn't fall squarely on the kid, and that response helped him ride out the storm. That kind of emotional safety net is rare in F1, and it's why Mercedes is starting to look like the new model for sustainable driver development. It's not about going soft. Mercedes still holds their drivers accountable. George Russell isn't immune to criticism, and neither is Antonelli, but there's a sense of collaboration. You don't feel like it's the driver versus the team, it's the driver with the team. And when that happens, people perform, people grow. That's the whole point of investing in rookies in the first place. This contrast between the two teams is a spotlight on Formula One's future. Do you want a system that pushes drivers to their limits but also breaks them before they can blossom? Or do you want a system that builds something lasting, even if it takes a little longer? Red Bull is obsessed with immediate results, but sometimes the payoff for patience is even greater. Lawson is the proof. Antonelli is the proof. Two stories unfolding on different timelines, but echoing the same lesson. It's not just about who finishes higher in the standings this season, it's about who walks away from this year with a career still intact, who feels empowered, and who feels discarded. Lawson may have been cut, but he's not done. If anything, the way he's responded to Red Bull's rejection is building him into a tougher, smarter driver, someone other teams will now see as a hidden gem that just got misused. And Antonelli, his story's still being written. He's had the support, the time, the tools. If he delivers in the next few seasons, Mercedes will look like geniuses. If he doesn't, they'll know they gave him every chance. That's what respect looks like in F1. It's not always about wins and podiums. Sometimes it's about how you treat your people when they're down and whether you believe they can rise again.